Welcome, welcome. So we have about 2 more minutes and then I'll officially start. So if you just want to join and tell us in the chat where you, or just unmute yourself and tell us where you're calling in from, that would be awesome. Laura, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from Congers, New York, just outside of New York City.
Excellent, wonderful. And that is where outside of New York City?
So if you, it's actually right above Bergen County in New Jersey. So if you were going over the George Washington Bridge and you went into New York up the Palisades, it's on the Hudson River, but it's not, it's across the river from Westchester.
Oh, nice. Okay, Westchester. So that kind of I get.
Yeah.
Genevieve, where are you calling in from?
Boston.
Boston. Awesome. Love that. Let's see who else has the microphone turned on. Emily, where are you calling in from? Okay, Trisha says San Jose. All right, excellent. Well, 1 more minute and then I will get started. So very excited to do this today. Hope that a lot more women are joining us and talk about what's going on with women in leadership and sort of what is happening next in women in leadership, because it's been an interesting last 18 months, hasn't it? So
yes.
Excellent. Wonderful. Okay, good. So again, if you're just joining us, welcome. Go ahead and just let me know where you're calling in from in the chat feature. I'd love it if you turn on your videos. It makes it a little bit more personal so I can see you, because I'm an extrovert. For me, this is always helping me to feed off the energy and be my very best self. Thank you so much, Trisha. I appreciate that. Welcome, Olga. How are you? Olga's connecting to audio, and welcome. All right, so we are now at the top of the hour, so I will be...
Oh, you have no idea.
Talk to me about that. You're muted, Olga. Olga, we can't hear you. Olga? We can't hear you. We can't hear you. We don't have sound. All right. I don't think Olga is listening. Oh, Pooja is from India. Wonderful. Excellent. Okay, great. So welcome, everyone. My name is Beate Chalette. I am the growth architect and founder of the Women's Code. And I wanted to set this up today because about 18 months ago, I was doing a lot of speaking and talking about women in leadership, and I'd be on conferences and keynoting, and then the pandemic came and the conversation about women in leadership pretty much completely stopped. And so I decided that instead of getting upset about this, because what happens to women in leadership seems to be the cadence that we make great advances and it's in everybody's forefront and in everybody's top of mind. Something happens and then women fall back. And then it takes us another 10 years, another 15 years to catch up on some of the things that we just lost. So I wanted to know what was happening in the space. So I did interviews with CHROs, C-level executives, thought leaders, and said, what's happening to leadership entirely? And what I found is that there was something much larger at work, which I think is a great opportunity for us right now, as we're kind of coming together and looking at, because female leadership is what works in a crisis, I feel that we have a very unique moment in history to kind of come together and make something really happen. And so I wanted to now do the same thing with the women that are directly affected in the pandemic and ask you a couple questions and just get a pulse of where you are at with your careers and your developments, what's going on at your organizations. And so I would like to ask you to unmute yourself and let's just introduce ourselves and tell us your name, and if you so want to, the company you work for, or if you're in business by yourself, and tell us one favorite thing of yours. That could be your favorite dog, your favorite child, your favorite person in history, or something just to break the ice and get started. So may I ask Genevieve to get started?
Oh gosh. Okay. Gosh, favorite thing. It's hard to pick just one. However, I'll say the ocean, right? So the ocean. I am in my career, where I am in my career right now is I'm just about to start a new job with Syneos Health. So very, very excited about that. And so for me, the last 6 months has been about doing some consulting as well as, planning the transition into this new role.
Excellent. Congratulations. Laura.
My name is Laura Ryan. My favorite thing, I have so many favorite things. I guess my favorite thing is to cook. I am a first generation Italian American. And my mother, in my family, food is not an expression of eating. It is an expression of love. So that is my favorite thing. I am at Pershing, which is a subsidiary of the Bank of New York Mellon. I've been in my current role for 2.5 years and I love my job. And I'm in the midst of taking on some additional responsibilities because there's been a lot of change in my specific team. I'm also heavily engaged in my women's group at work. So I'm really interested in what you're seeing because we've done a lot with what we are seeing. And not just women, but with everyone during the pandemic. It's a lot of common themes regardless of gender profiles. There's just a lot of common themes throughout.
I love that. Yes. And you're touching on something that I think is really important for us to recognize right now, that the conversation really has shifted overall to a much larger conversation. And because of that, I feel that we as women have a obligation and an opportunity right now to really make an impact that is not just about what is often perceived as us versus them. Which I think doesn't work. Robin, you're nodding, so I'm going to put you right next on the spot. So, would you go ahead, please?
Oh, excuse me. My name is Robin Cerati. I am the head of HR for a company called Restaurant Associates, which is a subsidiary of Compass Group, which is the largest food service organization in the world. My favorite thing right now is vacation.
I love that.
I think like everybody else, we're exhausted and still not sure what's happening next. And just kind of to piggyback off of that comment while I was shaking my head is I think this year is outside of just COVID has changed the landscape on employee engagement and lifting up everyone so that we're creating a sense of belonging for everyone and a safe space for everyone. And it's a big task. And how do we help each other? How do we get everybody's arms wrapped around a strategy that does this for each other? And then I saw this and I thought, oh, I haven't done anything with women in a while. So I thought, wow, let me go hang out with some real smart women and have some good conversation. And I think that that's something we also need to focus on too.
Yes. And I love what you just said, Robin, because I think that this is sort of the question that I have today is that do we feel as women that this conversation of what is specific to women, right? The issues that we all struggle with, which is our families, our obligations to our families, oftentimes being primary caregivers, being, doing double, triple duty, especially in the pandemic. A lot of women were buckling under the pressure. The discrepancies in the workplace, because, as much as we all love men, but they're still primarily the decision makers in just about all C-level positions, and except, the 13% that we are able to conquer. And so that's really where we want to go in the conversations. But I just want to have like maybe one or two more people that are willing to introduce themselves before we dive into that conversation and share a favorite thing. Trisha, would you mind sharing a favorite thing?
Sure. My favorite thing is my dog. He is a 2-year-old Yorkie, 6 pounds of energy. So he keeps me on my toes and demands attention. So it's kind of nice to get that reality check, when you're busy with life and not necessarily focused on him. He kind of brings me back down to what's important. I just started with a new company. I'm working for Markey Microwave, which is a assembly manufacturing company. We're a 30-year-old startup, which I know sounds very ironic, but for 29 of the 30 years, the Markey family kept the company small and lean. And for the first time ever, we've built out an entire company during a pandemic of all times. Brought in on an entire C-suite, have been hiring like you would not believe. Every time I clear the queue, I'm now faced with 10 more recs. So it's an amazing time in a very challenging environment. And if I didn't mention, I am an operations manager turned HR business partner. So up till about 4 years ago, I was an operations leader leading a team, really helping to develop people. So the progression seemed very natural to me to move into HR, and I don't regret one bit of my migration over. But I will say the challenges are definitely present with a company that's acting like a startup, that really needs to focus on the people development side, all the while trying to grow during a pandemic. So it's been a fun few months, I will say that.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Sam, are you open to introducing yourself and sharing a favorite thing?
Absolutely. So, one of my favorite things that I'm going to take from Robin is I was going to say travel. So, I love to travel. I have to say, I keep telling my husband, let's go somewhere, let's go work from somewhere. So the other day I kept saying, let's go work from Hawaii. Let's go, rent an Airbnb. We'll stay there. We'll work. So he said to me, honey, it's work from home, not work from Hawaii.
Says who, right?
Right.
So, as I have to say, I really found this very interesting. And thank you for putting this together. It was something when it came across my LinkedIn, like I think all women get these days. We get so much inundated with info on LinkedIn, social media, anything, email. Just clearing your outbox at times is something very, very important to do. And you look away, you walk away for maybe an hour, and then suddenly you have like 40 emails that, or at least I feel I do. So we are a fulfillment company for banks, credit unions, lenders in the mortgage business. So we have seen a lot of growth during COVID because rates were so low. And then, taking everyone home and having them work while keeping security as one of the biggest things. So many challenges that I have to say that COVID brought on and you're right, what you said was, women take on so much burdens, right? But what I have to say, and I've said this to some women that I talk to, someone was apologizing. One of the women, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, why are you sorry? You didn't create this, right? I mean, why do we feel like we need to be the ones that need to apologize for something that's not our fault, that we had nothing to do with, but we just feel like we brought it upon ourselves. So I'll leave you with that.
Good point, Sam. Thank you so much. So let's just dive into the conversation. And so because there's only, there's not that many of us, I think we'll be able to manage this amongst ourselves. So the format is you can either use the chat feature and just type it in, or just raise your hand and then go live to share your experiences. So my first question to you is, what either was or is currently your biggest challenge? Anyone wants to go first? So I'm going to just share something. What's my biggest challenge right now is, I had to, as a speaker, completely change my business, and to just figure out what that new business of mine looks like. I've worked nonstop for the last 18 months in figuring out what's relevant, because everything that I thought was relevant 18 months ago suddenly became completely irrelevant. And so just staying on this ever-changing survival, and then succeeding, and then the confidence, the stress, the anxiety, it was like every second something else came along where we're like, well, that's important, but wait, that's important. So what's your biggest challenge right now? Go ahead, Sam.
So I think our biggest challenge for a company, for us, would be that before we used to meet clients. So if they were going to say no, you met them in person, you could pitch to them, you could figure out a need. Now, it's like, oh no, fine, So what we feel is, because of that, our ABP numbers are slightly off, because we could not meet anyone in person. We could not go talk to people. We could not go sit in someone's office and say, hey, here we see a need for you, right? So even though we've been busy and it's been a great year, but I feel like we have not built as many relationships. And and I have to say this, I used to think I had great relationships, right? I'm connected to 4,000, 3,000 people, but that doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
So people will say, oh yeah, I know you. Yeah, I know her, but we don't really, you realize you only know that many people. I could count on my fingers of one hand of the people that I say that I really know.
So for you, would you say then it's the maintaining the personal relationships that's a big challenge for you?
Yeah, well, yes, not just maintaining especially work relationships, right?
Okay.
You can maintain personal relationships, but to maintain work relationships.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Laura,
I totally agree with that.
You're ready. Go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think, we have lost that area of you're walking to the ladies' room and you run into someone and you have that connection where you no longer have, you can't get a hold of someone on the phone, so you walk down to their desk. That is no longer available to us. And so lacking that human connection also means we lack that spontaneous ability to get the answers that we're looking for in a more human way, as opposed to sending an email. And for myself personally, in my role, I struggle with prioritizing. We just had turnover on our team. We were a team of 7 people in January. We are a team of 4 people now, with the exception of one person who did something totally different. Now 4 people are covering the work of the 4 of us, plus the 2 that left. And they were very big jobs, and everybody's pitching in, and it becomes very difficult to prioritize. Mm-hmm. And we are a very high performing team. And sometimes things fall through the cracks, and you have to be able to make sure that you can account for those and kind of circle back when that happens, because it's bound to happen, because there's only so much time in a day and you have to focus on that. So I know I personally am struggling a little bit with the prioritization piece of it, especially since I don't have an office to go to where I can't track people down to get answers.
So for you, then it would be the personal connections and setting priorities.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like your entire way of working changed.
Absolutely. I like you, I'm a people person. I love to get into a room and read the room. Like, I love to see what people's reactions are. It's incredibly difficult to do that on a Zoom. I find.
Thank you.
For me, it's incredibly difficult.
Olga, you look ready to share. Go ahead.
Yes.
Your greatest challenge.
Hi, Beats. Thank you so much for inviting me to this forum. I can just tell you, I'm exhilarated. I see beautiful, talented, smart women. And just to add what Sam said and Laura said, that starvation from physical proximity to ladies like yourself, to coworkers, has been really grinding. And if you add on top of it the mother with dementia and screaming clients who would like to see you don't really understand the internal policies of the firm. So it all kind of came to, I would say, the cumulative point for me about a month ago, when I just realized I have to step away. I have to step away from everything just for 2 days and shut off the telephone. So if you do ask me what my favorite occupation is, turning down that darn cell phone at the end of exactly at 5 o'clock, not seeing the work emails. And then on a personal matter, I can tell you this past 18 months, I haven't seen my office in 18 months. it's been challenging because I had to completely reinvent myself. So yes, Sam, clients are located somewhere. You think you know them, you really don't know them, right? And your focus becomes a Zoom, WebEx, and the telephone. And then you get a feedback from one of your partners that you're not eloquent enough to do certain kind of business like institutional retirement because you're not very fluent in certain things, which I've been in the business for a really long time. That was hurtful to a certain degree. And of course the C-suite not exactly doesn't really talk to me. He talks to my partner, right? So that's another thing. We talk about equality, right? But the question is, when is that equality is really going to be incorporated in the corporate bylaws to a certain degree?
Do you think that this critique to you was something that was specific for you as a woman? Because so I want to dive into this a little bit. So was it a critique of you not being able to adjust quickly enough to something that they didn't even know what it was, but they knew it wasn't what you did?
I think it was more critique to my communication style, which might be slightly different. I'm not sure if it's a woman or not. I want to be fair here, Beat, right?
Yeah.
So it just, what actually was surprising, it came out after so many years of partnership, up to 5 years of partnership, right? So I'm not sure if it was on a personal level, or if it's a woman, or I got dismissed because I'm a woman with an accent, so certain things, it's a kind of very difficult to identify that.
Okay, so you were feeling that there was something, but it was an unidentifiable.
That is correct.
Obstacle. Yeah.
Right.
Well, as a woman with an accent, believe me, I hear you. I have learned to make this my greatest strength. So when people say, "Do I hear an accent?" and I said, "Yes," and the German engineering that comes with it. So just make sure when somebody points out your accent that you add, there's just a little coaching piece on the side. Just add a second advantageous piece with it. Depending on where you come from and what people commonly associate with that, just make that your strength. So you shift that thought process.
I can always quote Tolstoy. Exactly. I don't think German engineering sits on my side, but I can actually go into Russian literature. Yes.
Exactly. I will be your ruling Tolstoy for the day. I'll bring the deep thought process to this, right?
That's great.
See, I'm going to bring the spicy, fiery Indian, to go fight for you.
The colorful, spicy Indian. I love that. Very good. All right. So we are on the topic of what is your greatest challenge. Julie, you look ready to go.
Oh man, I was not expecting that at all. Okay. First of all, thank you very much for having this forum. It is very nice to see all these lovely faces. My greatest challenge, I think my greatest challenge is convincing myself that I know what I'm actually doing. So it's sort of like a confidence thing. Like on the one hand, I'm like, I'm awesome at my job, right? But I can't, sometimes I don't get recognition necessarily or confirmation of that from my senior management. So I sometimes, I have to sort of like be my own cheerleader. And I find that difficult. Even though I've been doing what I've been doing for 20 million years and,
has this changed for you in COVID, the lack of the immediate external feedback in the work, and you now have to learn how to take more out of yourself?
Yes, for sure. I also just like anecdotally I've recently, in March of 2020, I started managing a bigger team from afar. So, and my boss is from afar now as well. So I think potentially that's all tied together. But I do, some days I'm like, damn, I'm good. And then some days I'm like, please, sir, can I have another? Like it's kind of all mixed together. And then I see, another CEO who's another white man that I'm working for, who I'm like, I would do so much better than that guy at that job. How am I going to get that job? You know, and I know it takes a lot of like politicking, and not really interested in that either, even though I know it's sort of like a necessary evil, etc. There's a whole lot of things that I'm finding challenging, I guess.
I would like to dive into that a little bit deeper if you're willing to play. So this is something that I hear a lot, and my colleague Pat is here, and I'm so happy you're here. And she experiences this all the time as well, is that when we specifically work with women, there is, you know, that what you talked about, the inconsistency of evaluating your contributions, right? Like the value that you bring to the table. Would you be willing to share a little bit about how that shows up? Because I think this is really a big point for all women. Is like some days we wake up and we go like, yeah, I got this. And then somebody says one negative thing, right? So Olga, that's probably going to tie into what so for 20 years, everybody tells you how great you are. That one day somebody says, you screwed up on that. And that is so, and you suddenly carry that over your head. Even you have 20 years of compliments, but that's the one thing that drags you down. Yeah. Tell me about that a little bit more, Julie. How does this drag you down?
Well, I think I definitely, my boss did say to me, now that you mention it, after we did a presentation, like we're pitching to win some business, and it was a high profile possible client, like, you know, lucrative. And afterwards I wanted to debrief with my boss, and she said that our CEO said to her, wow, Julie was really nervous in that meeting. And I was like, I didn't think that at all that I was. I mean, I had like written my notes, and I created the deck, and I practiced it 49 times. And, you know, so that, of course, like you said, that stuck with me and has stuck with me. You know, my boss was like, you really need to work on your confidence. And I didn't think, like, I find that so interesting, but also not necessarily, what's the word?
Helpful.
Because because I don't know, what do you do? Like, what, like just look at myself in the mirror and be like, you can do it. Like, how do you build your confidence in something? Like,
so
logistically, how do
Can I throw something in there? You hit us like a really like aha moment for me when you were talking about confidence. I often also see on the flip side, when a woman is too confident or she's too assertive, she is appearing aggressive, or she's too controlling, or she's too forceful. So it's almost that fine line of where do you find that balance?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's a very, very powerful thing to say. So that is the no-win situation for women. I see this all the time. You know, I created a program called the Unapologetic Value Proposition, where I actually teach perception and reframing on how, because what happens is that people are trained to look at finding flaws. And when you allow them to go there, that's exactly what they will do. So it's your job to redirect that away from that. But this is a very thank you for sharing that, Julie. I'm sure this is a painful moment, but yes, what's the right way to go about it? LaTanya, I would love to hear from you. And of course, I waited until you started taking a big zip. So go ahead, tell us about your greatest challenge.
I think my greatest challenge is probably undermining and people feel like I'm not qualified to be in the circles I'm in or in the rooms I'm in. And so I found myself in situations where, like I remember one time, sometimes people have trouble pronouncing my name. And like I was in one meeting and he was like, oh, Latonia, whatever it is, it's so hard to pronounce. I'm gonna call you Rachel. You know, and I was the only woman in the room, and only woman of color, I'm the only person who looks like me there. And so now I'm in a situation of what do I do? And some other people, like another person was my friend, and he's like texting me like, don't say anything, don't say anything. So now, because we really need this person, like, don't say anything. So now I'm in a situation where I have to, or I feel like I have to bite my tongue so I don't look unprofessional, even though what he said to me is completely unprofessional.
I mean, I would have looked at him, and let's say his name is Scott. I would have cracked a joke and I said, sure, if I can call you Al to make it easier for everyone. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just absolutely unacceptable. So question for you. And if you allow me to go there, LaTonya, do you think this has something to do with that you sometimes or oftentimes are not just the only woman, but the only Black woman in the room? Does this contribute to this?
I think sometimes it's both. I mean, at that point, it was a defense contract, so it was only older white males, and I think sometimes working around older men in general is kind of a tricky. Like I have to put, even if I'm giving them information that they need, I have to put stuff in the form of a question. So because I don't want to seem overconfident, I don't want to seem like I know too much. So it's kind of, I don't really know where it's coming from. It could be because I'm Black. It could be because I'm a woman. Who knows? It could be because I'm younger than them. Who knows what it is, but I think all of those things, it kind of results in the same thing, that I have to kind of walk a tightrope most of the time with the things that I say, and I guess how I present myself all the time.
Mm-hmm. Sam, is
LaTonya, I'm gonna say I come from India. My name, when I came to this country, I've now changed my name. Now everyone calls me Sam. My real name is Mamta. People could not even pronounce it. People had no idea where India was when I came to the country in 1982. So I have been through that. I mean, I have been called, oh, you need to go back to your country. You don't belong here. What reservation are you from? I didn't even know what that meant when I came to this country. What reservation are you from? So I was like, oh, I came on Pan Am. I thought it meant like, what reservation? Idiot. The
Right.
things that I know now. But that doesn't, I mean, I feel that those are things that don't define me anymore. I mean, they used to at some point, but I feel like I have come a lot more ahead in my journey as, CEO of a company, that now when someone says that, and trust me, like all women, I carry this burden of, I have an accent, I look different, I don't have blonde hair, or, like, honestly, when I started this thing, I had my hair in a ponytail because that's how I wear my hair all the time. But then I was like, okay, I need to look a little bit better,
I'll say, yeah, I agree with that, because I've been asked, why aren't you wearing a dress? Or can you just wear a dress this time, like to this meeting? Or can you do this? I've been asked to change a lot, I will say.
And I'm going to a meeting on August 12th. And the first thing I was thinking, what dress am I going to wear? What suit am I going to wear? What am I, I don't know if men think about that when they're going to a meeting. Right? But as a CEO or as an Indian carrying this weight, and as a woman, we carry all these things with us. And by the way, Julie, I have to say this, I've read this book and it really brought something to me or it was a lecture, I don't remember, but one of the things that said, when someone praises us, we're like, oh, thank you. Really? You really mean to say that about me? But when they give us a little bit of negative feedback, we take that and we spin it in our minds. Okay. So now when people say to me, oh, you're so smart, I'm like, yes, I am. Thank you.
Thanks for noticing.
Men don't say, oh, am I really that smart?
No, men say, right? Men say, yeah.
Yes. So, now I've started saying, oh, you're so smart. I'm like, it took you long enough to figure that
out. Hilarious. All right. So,
or I have even said this. I'm like, God has just given me so much beauty and smarts,
Lucky one. You're the lucky one here. Okay. Veronica, would you like to chime in? Are you comfortable to share your greatest challenge?
Sure. So my greatest challenge, I guess, obviously pre-pandemic, my greatest strength was networking, in person, relationship building. Kind of in person has always been key and important to me in building my business. And I work as a business performance advisor for a leading HR service provider. So I don't own my own business per se, but I run my own business, my own book of business. And so that quickly became a challenge for me. And getting used to the virtual meetings versus in person, where you don't sometimes get a real feel for what the other person is feeling or thinking. So that became a big challenge for me the last year. Thankfully, things are starting to open up, and there's more opportunities for in-person networking and meeting, maybe even in person sometimes. I know we're not quite there yet, but that was the biggest and greatest challenge for me, being that I always thrived in in-person settings.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
All right. So, Genevieve, Robin, do you want to add to your greatest challenge?
Sure. Robin, is there a Robin on? Would you like her to go first? Robin?
No, Genevieve, go ahead.
Oh, I thought you said Robin. Sorry.
I said Genevieve and Robin.
Oh, and Robin. Okay, so I will go first.
Please.
Gosh, I was, first of all, let me just say I was loving everything I just heard from everybody. So thank you so much for sharing, especially Sam and LaTonya, for the details right behind your stories. And those are always so helpful and so important to keep in mind for all of us in the work world. So for me, my challenge, gosh, I would say the biggest challenge is not so different than a lot of the things we've been hearing, and that is to make and advance relationships. While video is great, you really do feel like you're in the room with somebody. However, there's some subtleties that we miss. And so I think communication is sacrificed just a little bit because of the way we have to work right now. So I would say that was my biggest challenge. And I know this is a theme that others have brought up as well, so it's not really new. That's it for me.
Thank you. Robin?
Gosh, lots of stuff there, and I could grasp onto a lot of pieces for everyone. I think my story is one that I won't spend a lot of time on, but I purposefully moved from operations into human resources management because I felt strongly about being able to be an advocate for women in the workplace. It's not always easy. I'm also in a very male-dominated organization. I'm fortunate that the organization recognizes that and tries to elevate women so you have a platform. But I still find it interesting when you're in meetings. Someone has a tendency to, I'm trying to introduce words like intersectionality and microaggressions, because what we're talking about is microaggressions, and helping people to understand that those words are hurtful and they're not meant for the workplace. They're inappropriate comments in the workplace. They're meant to stifle confidence. It's a form of bullyism, and we have to stand up in the workplace and say, I'm sorry, that just isn't acceptable. Until you can ever get a conversation with me, I'm not engaging in it. But you have to be able to have a space that allows you to be able to push back and understand what's happening. And you have to be able to be in an organization that helps you train to see it. And we're making steps in that direction. But I think conversations like this are good, so that people know that there's a support system to help each other. I got an email the other day from someone, and I read it, and I had to put it on pause and come back and revisit it, and picked up the phone and said, what was that about? So sometimes reacting very quickly, I have found over COVID, isn't a good method of addressing issues. Sometimes letting the steam go between and following up afterwards has been a recipe that I've learned over COVID. I have a high conflict line. I get mad, very angry, and people know it. And sometimes that doesn't work for me either. So it's a two-way street. But no one's going to know unless we call them out and tell them it's not acceptable either.
Right.
And it's not easy.
No, it's not. And certainly, tying this back into the conversation earlier about perception of how women often are being perceived, or how easy it is to go into these trite statements that we talked about. It's like, if you have an accent, you can't be that smart. If you're not wearing a dress, you're not feminine enough. I had somebody say to me once, why are you not wearing nail polish?
Wow.
Because you have nail polish on your toes. Why wouldn't you put that on your fingers? It's like none of your business. But you know, it's amazing to me what sometimes comes out of people's mouth. Pooja, am I saying your name right? Do you want to share as well?
Hello, everyone. Yes, it's absolutely correct. My name is Pooja. Thanks for pronouncing it right. Hello, everyone. It's very nice, honestly telling you, I felt very nice to hear you all. Honestly telling, when I just entered into this meeting, I felt like that if I'll feel it interested, I'll join it for longer, because at present in India, it's 1 a.m., right? So, but the moment I listened to you guys, I didn't feel like leaving the meeting. I felt like, right, these problems are so common. And one thing is similar amongst all of us, that we are all women, but still we can sustain in this such a struggling world. Right. So I really feel very good to be amongst. And today I would love to be a very good listener. I want to know exactly, how you guys too struggle, and how you guys like. I was listening, Sam. Right. I'm sorry, ma'am. I know you're elder than me. I'm taking your name. Like in India, we hardly do that way. So, ma'am, I was hearing you too. As you shared that your struggle when you just went from here, you struggled for your existence. You were to prove yourself that yes, you have so many other things to prove out. So, in the same way, as I just wrote in chat box too, that here in also India, if I talk about personally, just precising a little bit, if I talk about my challenge, at my working place, I feel like that if you are a boss, you are totally unacceptable for males. They don't accept your things. If you order, you don't order them actually, but they take it that as you're ordering them. Right. They feel like that you're.
Another appointment at 3. I was just going to see if
Hold
you
on one
wanted to
second.
come in
I'm
at
just
like
gonna mute.
3:40.
It's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
It's okay. So they feel like that a woman cannot order us, and they'll just make a group and they'll just talk about you. Such sort of problems are still existing in India, which we're really worrying about. And the moment I saw this, the title of your event, the leadership in women, I felt like joining and listening that what, the people who don't live in India, what they do have to say about this leadership program. So very pleasing. It's a very pleasing moment for me to be here, the part of you guys. I would be a very good listener. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that very much. Yes, I think it is absolutely correct that there are, from country to country, oftentimes different perception of women. So my next question to you is, and welcome, Crystal. We were just talking about the greatest challenges we're experiencing as women. So if you want to chime in, go ahead and unmute yourself and share your greatest challenge. If you want to just hang out and listen a little bit first, then that's okay as well. So just let us know if you want to chime in. So my next question for you is around when we talk about personal development, right? So this kind of has come up a couple of times, especially when it comes around confidence, imposter syndrome, reframing, perception, how I show up. So my goal, and the reason I wanted to start to have these conversations is I wrote a book that was called Happy Woman, Happy World. And I had this idea, this concept where I said, I'm a single mom, was a single mom, immigrant, originally from Germany, was deep in debt, went through 8 disasters now with a pandemic. Who knew that I could add a pandemic to fires, floods, riots, earthquakes, lawsuits, a tsunami, and 9/11. But I think I think except a hurricane and a tornado, I think I kind of covered them all. And so I found that, and after I sold my business, and I sold my business to Bill Gates for millions of dollars. And then I realized when I'm in this corporate setting that the way women are treated and the way men are treated is completely different, completely different. And I was shocked. The shit I had to listen to sometimes where I go, you didn't just say that, did you? Because I come from entrepreneurship. So, keeping my mouth shut certainly wasn't a skill anybody taught me. And so I'm sitting in there and I'm going like, are you serious? And they are, because that's the way the system is set up, because the structure is set up by men for men, and it works really great for men. And so this pandemic comes. And in my first book, I had this idea that we have to really create what I call the women's code, which is this idea that we have to have a code amongst each other. So we collaborate and not compete, so we can help each other. Because if you believe that there's only 13% of C-level positions available for women, of course you're going to have to take every woman out on the way. But if you believe that there's 50% of C-level positions available for women, now we can collaborate and help each other, because then there's enough for women in these spaces. But that I don't think that has sunk in for most women in the workplace quite yet, that's really a possibility. Now the pandemic came, and I looked at it and I saw what leadership style works in a pandemic. Collaboration, community, empathy, and that's all women centric, right? And so suddenly we are applauding men who are empathetic. Whereas in their office, they have thousands of women, they already have that built into their DNA. But the one guy who figured empathy is now the guy that's being used as an example, whereas for women, it's like, you're so emotional. So the question now that I have, right? So, because I always come at this from a perspective of how do we solve this, right? So the objective I want to build is to say, we know what the men's code is. We are building this women's code. And then we are connecting the both of them together, because we now have this moment in time where we say, we know women leadership centric attributes work, and they have its place in the business world for leaders. Like every man needs to have some female leadership attributes, and every woman needs to have some male leadership attributes, right? We need to kind of know both, and then seamlessly, like in the infinity sign, go back and forth. So as I'm working on putting this program together, I'm thinking about the things we need to cover is perception, pitching, confidence, reframing. What other things do you think do you need to know to lose all of these things you talked about in your greatest challenge, so that you can show up unapologetically? And what LaTonya, what you said really, really concerns me, because it sounds to me like you are on a regular basis have to put yourself down to be acceptable, as even to be allowed to speak. Now that is completely unacceptable to me. So what do you think, from what you see, what would you like to know that would help you to overcome this and to be that fabulous, authentic, brilliant person who you really truly are at your core? What would that be? And just guess if you don't know.
I would say I don't know. I think maybe how to keep my cool, because I think that's, why my friend asked me not to say anything, because I blow my top very easily in situations like that. And I know that it was intended to throw me off, basically.
And make you be the angry Black woman?
Exactly. That was the whole point, because that is, some groups is fine, and in some groups there's a lot of microaggressions. So that's why I said I always feel like I'm walking a tightrope with my temper, I guess, and actually being able to speak to people in a way that I can dance around all of the microaggressions and still be professional anyway. So that's the tightrope. So I'm not really sure what I would do or what I need.
I'm going to help you reframe that right away. Quick coaching tip: don't call it temper, call it passion.
Okay.
All right. Who else has a learning desire? What would it be?
I would like to know, how to reach the C-level executives in this marketplace during COVID, where you cannot go meet people what is the best way to get to, decision makers?
Okay. So, and you're saying this because you want to get to a higher level. Do you want to get their attention?
Well, see, I'm a CEO, so I have the title. So,
Yeah.
what happens is I get a lot of people wanting to interact with me, or, trying to sell me something. Oh, you need this, you need this. That's not it. But I've also want to reach, like Laura said, she works at BNY Mellon, right? So let's just say that, I need to reach their senior VP of vendor management or outsourcing or something. So I can send out digital, I can send out LinkedIn in emails, I can send out emails, I could do a phone call. But how do I change my marketing, or how do I change something about myself to be able to reach them so they either pick up my phone?
Yeah, it sounds like you need some good backdoor strategies. I love that stuff. Backdoor strategies are everything.
I don't have a back door. Only door is the front door.
I can teach you that, but thank you for sharing that. I think that a lot of what women need to know is how to find alternative ways and backdoor strategies to get in the door. I'll give you a funny example, then you know exactly what I mean. So when I was building my business, I wanted to get a contract with the largest image provider in the world. And I couldn't get a meeting if my life depended on it, because I was a nobody. And so I figured out that on industry conferences, all the men always go to the bar. So guess where I went? I went to the bar, and I invented something that I called the Cinderella Rule. Always dress up for the ball at the bar, 3-drink maximum, in bed before midnight, and you walk to your room alone. So that gets you out of trouble, but you are right there with all the decision makers. And as they don't follow the Cinderella Rule, they certainly don't follow the 3-drink maximum. And so they get smashed because they're away from home. No wife is controlling them. They're with their buddies. They're talking. They're in their element. So I'm just listening. I'm just fun to be around. So I got the meeting. That's a backdoor strategy, because once I knew what they were talking about and they knew I wasn't going to talk about what they really said at the bar, suddenly I became one of them and I got the meeting. So that's like one of my backdoor strategies. So you just have to look at this always, so backdoor strategies is a very good point. Thank you, Sam. I'll make a note of that.
But because of COVID, no one's going to any of these things. What I do is I go to the bar. I know all the men are going to end up at the bar, right? So I have given the bartender $100 bill. I've given the waitress $100 bill. And I say, when people ask for drinks, give me my drinks first. And I'll give you another 100 when I'm done. So then I would buy the men the drinks because they couldn't really get it. I would be the one that I would do this and they'd give it to me.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, there are things, there are strategies that we're seeing popping up. And Pat, you have a lot to say about backdoor strategies as well. Do you want to just chime in here? Because you've been unusually quiet. Go ahead.
I just was thinking the $100 would go well if you told them to give me water and liquor everybody else up. You want to do shots? Let's do shots. You want a cocktail? Absolutely. They don't need to know that your absolute club is water.
Drink soda. I only drink. I don't even drink, well, I do drink, but I have a glass of wine, and then after that I'm drinking club soda. So I always say it's vodka.
There you go.
Club soda with lime, and people think I'm drinking vodka. I'm like, gotta keep the weight low. Vodka, club soda, easiest, lowest calorie drink.
Drop a lime in there and you're good to go.
Yep.
So Pat, what are you seeing as far as greatest challenge, and what would you like to learn? What do you think the skills are that women need to have now? What's next?
So the greatest challenge in my own home, well, I'm a COVID survivor. So one of the things is the unpredictability of the recovery, like physically how you feel. That has certainly been something that I was not welcoming, planning for, and it I just had a nap before we met, so it's true. Right? You're used to being Wonder Woman, so it's frustrating. And also watching, even in my own household, people afraid to speak up to their organizations about what they want or what they need or asking specific questions. Everybody's kind of just waiting to be told what to do, and it impacts the entire household because it's where do we live? What do we do? You know, it's really, and I don't understand, like my husband, why won't you ask the question and set the bar and then make it think it's their idea? So that's part of the frustration, honestly, is this timidness around communication, people being afraid to even speak up or ask questions. And I don't mean in a nasty way, I just mean period in general, right? Become part of the solution. Don't complain, ask a question, insert a potential solution. What if we tried this and see if you can start to make headway? Where to need help? I concur with a lot of folks. I think that for me, focus and trying to make confident decisions and schedule things in an uncertain world. So down here in South Carolina, they opened up once we were starting to get vaccinated. And then we had the gas shortage, and for 2 weeks couldn't get gas. So you were allowed to go someplace, but you couldn't get there. There was no gas. We need to keep staying nimble about how we navigate. And I think that's, in a way, it's a little bit of hurry up and wait. So how do we focus and make schedule our lives and our programs and our plans with all the uncertainties that happen?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we have a couple minutes left. So I wanted to, first of all, ask, does anyone want a recording of this? Is that something that you guys are okay with?
Sure.
Can I see a show of hands? Okay. So, no. All right. So if you do, please put your email in the chat so I can send you the audio recording if you want to listen to this again. My email, just in case if anyone wants to reach out to me personally and just follow up, I'm going to be putting this in there. It's bc@beatechalette.com. And the insights paper that I talked about what the future of leadership is at diversify.world. So if anybody wants to download that, that's the insights paper that comes from my last sets of interviews. Thank you for sharing today. So I would just like to go around and see what's a takeaway that you are walking away with from this conversation. And Sam, I'll just start with you.
Well, what I'm taking away from this is that every one of us is almost faced with the same challenge, right? We all deal with certain things that it's all in our head, and we have all our own cross to bear, right? Crosses to bear. So it could be whatever we face that challenge that week. But, I think as women, we should all be here to support each other, and we can all be connected on LinkedIn. And I'm going to put my email in here. So if ever anyone wants to reach out to me, please, I'm really good at texting, and I'm really good at staying in touch. And if someone ever needs something, I just feel like, my world is collapsing. There are days my world is collapsing twice a day, So I'm here for you if anyone needs that.
All right, Laura, what's your takeaway today?
I think very similar, how the struggle or the challenges that we face are really common across women. One of the things that I personally have started thinking more about in terms of confidence is really relates to my own negative self-talk, like not doing that and keeping, it's hard, but I think it was Julie that talked about, do you sit there and tell yourself every day how great you are? Yes, you do. You wake up every morning and tell yourself, I am going to kill the day because there's no other option. And no one else is going to support you the way you have to support you. And, so those are the things that I always take away. And I think it was great hearing from everyone, and please connect in with me in LinkedIn. And I think it's great. I think these are great forums for women to really talk about the common struggles that all of us face.
Thank you for that. I appreciate your honesty on that. And it is absolutely about mindset, 100%. And This is, what I read. Just did it this morning. And the sentence I read this morning that I just highlighted, when one is truly ready for a thing, it puts it in its appearance, right?
Oh, wow.
So how timely was that for this morning as a recommendation? Julie, what are you taking away? We have you on mute.
Sorry. I was going to say, isn't it obvious? I have to wake up and say into the mirror every day that I'm great at my job and I'm going to have a great day. I'm going to give it a try. I
like
also have written down a couple of book referrals and also just the idea that these issues are universal. And so, it's
Thank you so
it's
much.
it's not just me. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Genevieve.
Yeah, so hard to pick one takeaway, but I think the takeaway for me is that it feels to me like we really do need to come up with some solutions and start taking steps so that we do all have the same experiences. And it's so obvious from this call, it's pervasive, but that coming together and trying to come up with some solutions and then putting those solutions in place seems to be what we need to do next.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that. Olga.
Oh, I just want to say that it's been extremely, this particular meeting today is to a certain degree reflected a lot of thoughts I had since the beginning of the year. It was a deeply personal journey for me, both professionally, just to not to recite everything what has happened. On a more business level, I would like to cite a great German author, Erich Maria Remarque, who wrote the book about that one is not a war. It's not an army in the field. On a professional level, and in the business I'm in, everybody tells me you have to have a personal advisory board. And, over the years on the personal advisory board, I thought, how would I approach the advisory board? Who I would like to actually to see the advisory board. And today's session made a couple of revelations to me. It wasn't, and pardon my language, it wasn't the complain and the solve session. Not at all. It was very constructive. So these are, so we're dealing with perceptions. Mm-hmm. It seems like for all the glass ceilings everybody broke through here, we still have to adjust our communication style to please someone, that we're not being, I'm sorry, menopausal, anything else, hysteric, or if we react to personal insults, it becomes a non-constructive conversation. And just like Sam said, and just like Latonia said, it's very difficult because we programmed as women, be nice, don't say too much, just go with the flow.
Be seen but not heard.
That's exactly right. And so I came to conclusion after this, if I want to have a board of directors, I would like to have you all on that board.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you.
So, thank you.
All right. Latanya, what are you taking away?
I think it's that we have, we're all just going through the same struggles. And, when Sam said we all have our crosses to bear, like my phrase, we all have our dresses to wear and our crosses to bear. So that we're all basically going through the same things and dealing with the same struggles. So,
yeah. Veronica.
One of the key takeaways is that, other women are and should be our allies, not our competitors. Like you said, there's room for 50% of leadership to be women. And sometimes we think that we have to compete against one another. So I guess that's one of the key takeaways as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, very much so. Pooja.
Yeah, I guess everybody has said the same thing, and I'm also with the same view. of course, yes, the same problems we all face. Maybe we are living here in India or wherever, whichever country, foreign country it may be. The struggles are similar. But of course, yes, as a woman, we all, if we feel like that we are weaker inside somewhere, we should realize this thing that yes, we are stronger enough, right? That's why, like, people, they call the woman only the stronger one. That's why we are there, even to give a birth to a child that a woman can only give. Right. So you feel that strength in you. And the moment we realize that strength in us, that if we can bear that strength wherein we can give a birth to a child, why cannot be strong in our minds in the same way, having the same strength? Why can't we possess that? So I guess I have taken away like this thing from here, that like every woman, maybe they feel weaker inside somewhere else, but still there is strength which is existing in everybody's mind, and everybody wants to be the stronger one. And I love to be amongst all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, so thank you so much. We're 3 minutes over, so I'm going to wrap this up. So I thank you so much for being here. I feel very compelled to do this again, because I do feel that we really we're talking very honestly about some of the things that we all are challenged with. And as you see, it's the same issues across the board. Is how do we show up, but be ourselves, instead of constantly trying to conform to someone else's idea of what we should be, without them ever knowing or being able to articulate what that even is. Because women leadership, I always said that women leadership is always defined by what it's not, but never by what it is. And so it's going to be up to us and the next generations, and us sharing what we have learned with the next generations, to make sure that women that come after us understand women in leadership exists because we declare it to be so, that there is that. All right. So
Thank you.
I thank you all. This was awesome. I appreciate for you being here, and I'll circulate the recording. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.